Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first of two election year mobilization events by South Asians for America. Tonight's event will be focused on the mobilization and impact of the South Asian community in the Commonwealth of Virginia. My name is Praveen Mayan, and I serve as the chair of the AAPI Caucus of the Democratic Party of Virginia and as co-chair of Political Engagement and Advocacy for South Asians for America. In Virginia, we know all too well about the importance of getting out the vote. The Asian American and Pacific Islander share of the electorate is 7.8% in Virginia, which is about 360,000 eligible voters. Of that, close to 170,000 voters are South Asian Americans, making them the largest AAPI ethnic group in the Commonwealth of Virginia. In Virginia, South Asian American voters can truly be the margin of victory. Over the past few cycles, investments in turning out the South Asian community have resulted in Virginia being carried by Democratic presidential nominees every year since 2008, and Democrats holding all 5 statewide offices. In 2019, Democrats flipped the state House and Senate, and the new Democratic majorities have passed bills on everything from gun reform, police reform, healthcare, education, and became the 38th state to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. In the process, we elected 2 South Asian members to the General Assembly, Senators Ghazala Hashmi and Delegate Suhas Subramaniam, who went on to form the General Assembly's AAPI caucus, along with Delegate Mark Keam, Delegate Kathy Tran, and Delegate Kelly Converse Fowler. Just this week, CNBC ranked Virginia #1 as the best state in business for the 2nd consecutive year. Not only is Virginia economy roaring, but it's becoming one of the most progressive states in the South, a welcome and inclusive place for all Americans. This is in small part due to the leadership of Governor McAuliffe, Delegate Hala Ayala, and Attorney General Mark Herring. We're honored to have each of them here with us and look forward to hearing from them about their vision for the Commonwealth and how they'll work to engage the South Asian community. I'm honored to first introduce Governor Terry McAuliffe. Governor McAuliffe is a lifelong entrepreneur and proud Democrat who served as the 72nd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia from 2014 to 2018. As governor, he focused on making the Commonwealth welcoming and inclusive and building a 21st century economy that created good jobs and expanded economic opportunity for all Virginians. During his tenure, Governor McAuliffe brought 200,000 jobs to the Commonwealth while driving down unemployment. He invested in workforce development and infrastructure, laid the groundwork for Virginia to be a national leader in clean energy, and helped to build a solid cyber ecosystem in the Commonwealth. He successfully secured a record $1 billion investment in education and expanded preschool to thousands of Virginia children. As governor, he served as a brick wall against extreme attacks on women's healthcare rights. He kept open every women's healthcare clinic in the Commonwealth and vetoed all anti-women rights legislation passed by the General Assembly at the time, including a bill that would have defunded Planned Parenthood in Virginia. In 2013, Governor McAuliffe campaigned proudly on his support for marriage equality, and he was the first Southern governor to officiate a same-sex wedding. One of his proudest accomplishments was successfully reversing a racist Jim Crow law that disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of Virginians. Thanks to his efforts, more than 200,000 Virginians have now had their voting rights restored and are able to participate in our democracy. Governor McAuliffe, we're truly honored and thrilled to have you joining us from the road here this evening.
Well, thank you, and it's a great honor to be with everybody, the AAPI community and everybody else. I look around, we have so many friends, and I just want to say thank you for what you have done to make Virginia the state it is today. Praveen, you're exactly right. I mean, 8 years ago when I ran for governor, our state economically was in a ditch. We had the Great Recession, we had sequestration, we had the most anti-women, anti-gay, anti-environment, pro-gun legislation in America. And when we got elected, myself and Ralph and Mark, we set about building what I call the new Virginia economy. Diversify. We became the #1 state for cyber, data, unmanned systems. I recruited 1,100 companies to come in from all over the globe. I went on 35 trade missions to 5 continents, dozens of countries to recruit businesses back. We're a different state today, and we cannot go back. And that's why I want to thank all of you on this Zoom for helping me, helping the state, and Hala. We got a great ticket, and I'm excited. We got to go big. We got to be bold for Virginia. I want to take this state. I'm on the road today. We're doing a 8-city swing in the last 2 days to talk about my higher ed plan, to invest in higher education, to make sure that those 40% of students who do not today go on beyond high school, that we're providing a pathway for them to get a credential, to get some kind of post-secondary degree, talking about paying room, board, and tuition so that we can diversify our teacher base. Big, bold ideas. That's why I'm back. I didn't think I'd be back. I got recruited to run by the leadership of the Black Caucus and Dick Saslow and Eileen Fillercorn and others. And, you know, we had a great primary. I see many of you helped me. Thank you. We was a historic win. I won every city and county in the primary, which is the first time anyone's done that in over 80 years. I got 62% of the vote. And of the 2,542 precincts, I won every single one except for 72. So thank you. What that means is there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and many of you endorsed me. I just want to say thank you. But let me say this, we got to worry because I'm running against a guy who's spending $75 million. Now I'm good at this, but $75 million is a lot of money. We caught him the other day lying. He said he was going to defund Planned Parenthood. He said that he would ban abortions in Virginia. And the worst thing is he said, I'm not going to tell anybody about that because if I do, I can't win the election. The man is a total hypocrite. He is a fraud. He is against a woman's right to choose. He is against gay marriage. He's against Medicaid expansion. He's against collective bargaining. He's against the $15 minimum wage. He's against sick pay. He's against family medical leave. So this is going to be a big election. We got to get everybody on the playing field. We got to win. We got to win big. I need Hala because, you know, when you think about the lieutenant governor, you know, sometimes all the Senate Democrats aren't always with us. In fact, on Medicaid expansion, the lieutenant governor had to break the tie. And I really need an attorney general because, you know, on restoration of rights and pardons, they kept suing me, the Republicans. So I need a good attorney general at my side, having my back. And finally, we've got to keep this House of Delegates. I had a Republican delegation in my General Assembly. They were awful. I need to have a Democratic. So we got to keep that 5-seat majority. So I'm excited. Game on. We're going to run the greatest coordinated campaign ever in Virginia history. We've got so many folks are excited about this. I am raring to go. And I just want to say thank you to the South Asian community who've been with me forever. As you know, in the AAPI community, I'm the first DNC chairman to actually establish the caucus at the National Party. So I'm all in. We're going to have great days ahead. Let's get everybody world-class education, get those 700,000 folks healthcare that don't have it today. Let's lean in on affordable housing, keep Virginia open and welcoming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's go, game on.
Thank you, Governor McAuliffe. We appreciate you taking the time to share with us your vision for the Commonwealth. And we're looking forward to helping you mobilize the South Asian community this year and helping elect you the next governor of Virginia. I
like it. You're on message, man. Let's go.
Next, I'd like to introduce Delegate Hala Ayala, who is running to become the next Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Born and raised in Virginia, Delegate Ayala understands the Commonwealth, its history, its challenges, and its many opportunities. As a daughter of a Salvadorian and North African immigrant father and an Irish and Lebanese mother, Delegate Ayala reflects the growing diversity of Virginia and the strength that it brings to our future. Growing up, Delegate Ayala's family struggled to make ends meet. And when she was pregnant, her job didn't offer any health insurance. Thankfully, she qualified for Medicaid, which provided health care for her and her son. Medicaid helped save her son's life. Delegate Ayala went on to build a career as a single working mom. For over 20 years as a cybersecurity specialist with the Department of Homeland Security, she worked to protect our nation's information systems and prevent attacks on our national security. And in 2013, Delegate Ayala completed her college degree online while working full-time. From the local PTA to statewide women's advocacy groups, Delegate Ayala has long worked for progress. In 2017, she helped organize the first Women's March in Washington. Seeing millions of women stand up against division and hate inspired her to run for office. She ran for Virginia's 51st House District and won against a 4-term incumbent in the diverse and fast-growing suburbs of Prince William County. A key part of the new Democratic majority, she made good on her campaign promises, expanding Medicaid for 400,000 Virginians, raising teacher pay, passing the Equal Rights Amendment, and expanding background checks to keep guns out of dangerous hands. Delegate Ayala, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your vision for our Commonwealth. It seems that we have temporarily lost Delegate Ayala's connection, so we will return to her as soon as she's able to hop onto the call. Thank you everyone for your patience. I would like to introduce the Attorney General of Virginia, Mark Herring, next, who is running for re-election. Attorney General Herring fights tirelessly on behalf of all Virginians. He is a leading voice for criminal justice reform in the Commonwealth. He is championing progressive reform measures like cash bail reform, expanding record expungement and reentry programs, diversifying the judiciary, and increasing safety, transparency, and accountability in policing, use of force, and deaths in custody. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Attorney General Herring has worked to keep Virginians safe and help them get through this health and economic crisis. He has successfully defended Virginia's COVID safety measures in court more than a dozen times, secured the first moratorium on utility disconnections, has helped address evictions during the pandemic, and has worked to stop price gouging and to get more PPE into the hands of those who need it. Attorney General Herring has gone to court time and time again to protect Virginians' health care. When the former president abandoned the defense of the Affordable Care Act in court, Attorney General Herring stepped in to protect coverage for pre-existing conditions and to keep healthcare affordable and accessible for all Virginians. He has also sued to block efforts to defund Planned Parenthood and limit women's access to reproductive health care. Even in Virginia, the NRA's backyard, Attorney General Herring has been a proud champion of common sense gun safety laws, like universal background checks, bans on high-capacity magazines and bump stocks, reinstatement of Virginia's one handgun a month law, and a red flag law, and has gone to court to successfully defend Virginia's new gun violence protection laws from legal attack by the NRA and the gun lobby. He has sued to block untraceable, undetectable 3D guns from hitting the streets and launched innovative campaigns to reduce violence in Virginia's communities. Attorney General Herring has won huge victories in court for LGBT Virginians, for dreamers, immigrants, and new Virginians, and for the right of all Virginians to live, worship, and raise their families free of hate and discrimination. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Attorney General, and we look forward to hearing about your continuing vision for the office of the Attorney General.
Well, thank you so much, Praveen, and I really appreciate the warm welcome. Thank you all for being on the call. And so much of the progress we've made over the last 8 years is attributable to really engaging the minority communities of all kinds in Virginia, especially the South Asian community. You all have been key to our success, and you're going to be key to our success again in this election. And there is so much at stake because we have made so much progress over the last 8 years. Some of you probably remember my predecessor, Ken Cuccinelli. So I had a lot of cleanup work to do after that. We won a landmark case on marriage equality, made sure that Dreamers could get an in-state tuition in their home state. We fought and won an injunction to block Trump's Muslim ban, which was hateful and just terrible. We stopped that. And so many other aspects of defending the healthcare when a Republican attorneys general came in and tried to get it overturned in court. We went into Texas. We took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court and just won a great victory a couple of weeks ago. So I'm really excited to be on a ticket with Governor McAuliffe and our future Lieutenant Governor, Hala Ayala. I think we've got a lot of momentum because of all of the progress that we've been made. But we have to be honest that there is a stark contrast between me and my opponent and really both tickets. We've already had our first debate a couple of weeks ago. Some of you may have read about it. And my opponent is wildly out of step with where Virginians are, including the South Asian voters in Virginia. He is against all of the gun violence prevention measures that we've passed. He likes to tout his A rating with the NRA. He is opposed to and voted against Medicaid expansion. He is a vocal opponent of the Affordable Care Act with its protections for pre-existing conditions. And even in 2021, he is shockingly opposed to LGBTQ rights. He voted against marriage equality, voted against anti-discrimination protections, and he voted against things like raising the minimum wage and voted against a budget that included raises for teacher salaries. So on issue after issue, he is wildly out of step with where Virginians are. And so it's going to be really important to make sure that we talk about those differences because there's so much at stake in this election. And you all are going to be really key to mobilizing that vote because we know that turnout is really going to be important. It's oftentimes that's our biggest obstacle coming a year after the presidential election. And we can't have that kind of fallback. So I'm really proud to be on this ticket. Praveen, thank you so much for putting this together. And to all of you who are on the call, thank you for all of your continued help and support. And I look forward to campaigning shoulder to shoulder with you all. And I'll see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much for joining on the campaign trail, Attorney General Herring. We're really grateful that you made the time to speak to us about your vision, and we look forward to mobilizing voters and sending you to your third term as Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you. I don't know if you can tell, I'm back in Northern Virginia now. We're coming back from an event for the state party in Fredericksburg. Hala, Ayala was there with me, and Susan Swecker. It was a great turnout. And now I'm back in the part of Northern Virginia where I grew up. And you know, when I was growing up back in the 70s here, it was pretty rural, very little diversity. And Dulles Airport was still brand new. But, you know, as we began to open up our arms to people from all over the world, you know, that diversity in Northern Virginia and all over the state really increased. And it has not only made us stronger, we saw our economy become much more dynamic. Virginia has really benefited from new Virginians moving in. And I think that has a lot to say about why CNBC, once again, has said Virginia is the best state in America for business. And I know that we can be not only the best state in America for business, we can also be the best state in America for workers and their families. So again, thank you all so much for your help and support, and look forward to campaigning with you on into November.
Thank you so much, Attorney General. And thank you so much for joining us, Delegate Ayala. We actually read your bio a little short while ago, so our audience has heard all about your wonderful accomplishments, and we look forward to hearing directly from you about your vision for the Lieutenant Governor's office.
Thank you so much, Praveen, and thank you all so much for having me. As the Attorney General said, we were both at the same event, so we were in transit. But I'm so deeply honored to be with so many amazing activists and elected officials who care so deeply about our Commonwealth and, of course, our nation, making sure our AAPI community feels included, safe, and welcomed in our communities and just our Commonwealth. We all share a vision, of course, for a better Virginia, and we are delighted and dedicated to make sure that we make our Commonwealth even more just and equitable for all Virginians. So I want a better life because I understand the struggles that so many Virginian families face. And so I will be fighting that battle at the forefront of it for every Virginian family. Many of you know my story. When I was pregnant with my son, I was working at a gas station, minimum wage, and Medicaid was a lifesaver for both of us. I almost died having him. I almost died, delivering my son, and he almost died after just being delivered. So, and plus other additional medical issues. Anyway, I just note the importance of how Medicaid has saved lives, and it continues to save lives today. We've done wonderful for the Commonwealth. We have expanded Medicaid to over 500,000 Virginians, and we still have 700,000 more to go. So this lived understanding and the ability to build the bridges that we need to build is how I made progress in the House of Delegates as not only a legislator, but as the Chief Deputy Whip. Together with my colleagues, this is not a lone wolf operation. It takes a village, and my colleagues and all of us stepped up, and we made healthcare more affordable, and we protected individuals with pre-existing conditions. We raised teacher pay. We helped small businesses weather the pandemic, and we're getting Virginians back on their feet stronger than ever before. And as Mark alluded to, the Youngkin Sears Miara's ticket is out to ensure that they roll back all of these progresses. Make no mistake, they will be pouring money into Virginia. So we have to do everything we can to battle this on all fronts, whether it's knocking doors, making calls, whether it is, donating. But I'm preaching to the choir. There's so much outreach that we have to do prior to November. Everything is on the line. So with that, I want to thank you so much for having me. I look forward to leading the charge with my fellow running mates, Governor McAuliffe and AG Herring. And, there's so much for us to do to make sure every Virginia family has the opportunity to succeed. So we'll keep delivering and moving forward, and working with you, we'll make this happen. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Delegate Ayala, for those inspiring remarks. My name is Salim. I'm proud to serve as a co-state director for Virginia, along with Kannan, Srinivasan. I'm now honored to moderate a panel on organizing AAPI and South Asian communities in Virginia, with some of the most inspiring AAPI leaders in the state, including 3 of the founding members of the newly formed Virginia State Legislature API Caucus, State Senator Ghazala, Hashmi, Delegate Kathy Tran, and Delegate Keam. First up, I'm honored to introduce Senator Ghazala Hashmi, who represents Virginia Senate District 10 and who made history in 2019 by becoming the first Muslim woman and the first Indian American woman to be elected to the Virginia State Legislature. Senator Hashmi, welcome to today's panel. Can you share with us your experiences in organizing the South Asian and AAPI communities in your historic 2019 election and what lessons can be learned for the 2021 election?
Well, good evening, and thank you so much, Saddam, for that introduction. And I just want to say thank you to all of the incredible organizers who are part of the South Asians for America. SAFA's hard work in the 2020 election was visible, and it absolutely deserves a great deal of credit for all of the successes that we saw across the country, and especially in the election of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as Georgia Senators Warnock and Ossoff. So congratulations to all of the folks and organizers in SAFA. And I know that SAFA's work is going to continue to play an important role as we move into the 2021 elections here in Virginia, in the election of Governor McAuliffe and Lieutenant Governor Ayala and Attorney General Herring. So something we've seen in Virginia and frankly all throughout the country is that the broader AAPI communities, as well as the South Asian communities in particular, are really engaged and excited now to be a part of the American political process. Certainly we've seen AAPI members running for office, but I think also very significant for us to focus on is the fact that we are seeing a larger number of AAPI who are engaged in all levels of government, and including outside of elected office. We see a lot of folks who are volunteering, recruiting others to be a part of the political system, and who are also very actively engaged in fundraising and knocking on doors, all that hard work that is a part of the electoral process. And it's exciting to see this level of engagement. And so for me in 2019, even though I don't have a very large AAPI population directly living inside my district, it was important for me to reach out to the diverse communities that are a part of Central Virginia. And I'm so thankful for the work and all the efforts of groups and organizations such as New Virginia Majority, organizations such as CASA in Action and Engage. And part of our message was really to highlight the ways in which local and state government have a direct impact on the lives of our AAPI communities. And so we highlighted things such as access to education, access to healthcare, support and resources for small businesses, and how the policy efforts of Democrats protect and support immigrant communities and push back against scapegoating, xenophobia, and hate crimes. Those were really important distinctions that we needed to make and highlight for the broad AAPI groups inside of Virginia. So some of the lessons learned, I think, is that we continue to help our AAPI communities become an important part of the democratic process and highlight especially the ways in which our voices do matter in the political system, and especially showcase the ways in which our collective action can and does make a real difference. So once again, just want to thank you for organizing and doing the hard work that SAFA is doing. Thank you for highlighting the critical election in Virginia. And I think we'll continue to see that Virginia leads other southern states, and it also helps to lead the rest of the country in promoting a sense of community that is inclusive, that is diverse, and that really seeks to welcome everybody. So thank you to all the organizers for this evening.
Thank you, Senator Hashmi. Next, I'm honored to introduce Delegate Mark Keam, who represents the 35th District in the Virginia House of Delegates, and who made history by being the first Asian-born immigrant and Korean American to be elected to the Virginia State Legislature, and who, along with Senator Hashmi, Delegate Tran, and others, founded the Virginia State Legislature AAPI Caucus in April of this year. Delegate Keam, welcome to today's panel. Can you share with us the impetus behind forming the AAPI Caucus and your efforts to ensure greater representation of AAPI interest in the state?
Sure. First of all, good evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you. So many friendly faces and some of our amazing leaders like Governor Terry McAuliffe, our next Lieutenant Governor Hala, Ayala, and of course my good friend Mark Herring, who's been an amazing Attorney General. I want to thank SAFA, especially Saddam, who not only is the leader of SAFA, but he's also one of our co-chairs up here in Northern Virginia and with our local Democratic Party. Praveen, of course, who's been a strong leader. Kannan, Anika. I'm struggling to start missing out on people when I start naming names, but I want to just thank all of you for organizing it. I also look forward to some of the other panelists. I see Tram and Eric on the call here. I know Nisha and Jarvis will be also speaking as well. So I look forward to their partnership and all the work that they've been doing on the grassroots. Let me put it this way. First of all, it's so great to see my sister from the State Assembly, Ghazala Hashmi, as well as you'll see Kathy Tran and others who've been part of our caucus. But I'll put it this way. I know that a lot of us who have our ethnic heritage for some reason happen to be pretty active in the technology industry. I've worked in the industry for a while as well, and a lot of my South Asian friends are still active. And I was just at an event today in Tyson's Corner where we have a lot of different companies that are founded by and run by South Asian American friends. And if you want to be successful in the technology industry, you have to be really good at one or the other or both. And I'm talking about hardware, or you have to provide the tools where people can actually build things, or you have to be really good at software that takes a company and provides them with resources and solutions so they can get to the next level. Or if you're really, really good, you make both hardware and software like Apple and other companies, and you combine those two powers. One thing that we've been doing really well in Virginia is on the hardware side, AAPIs across the board have been doing really well. Let me just give you a couple of statistics. I'm sure you know all this already, but Virginia, like a lot of the southern region, is currently the fastest growing region for our communities. AAPI communities across the board have been growing faster in the Southeast region than the rest of the country. Even places like California and Hawaii and New York and Illinois, where we have traditionally a lot of Asian Americans, our region is growing much faster than that. And the proof is in the pudding. We now have roughly 7% of the Commonwealth is AAPIs. But here's the interesting part of that. Because of the fast growth and the fact that so many of us are younger and are getting involved, we actually have 7.8% of the eligible voters being AAPI. So 7% across the board, but 7.8% voters. So we have the hardware of the number of voters there. We also have elected officials like Senator Hashmi and I and others who are taking the lead in the state level, at the county level, local levels, to be the voices for the community. And we certainly have a lot of allies as well. So on the hardware side, we are doing well in terms of having the infrastructure, having leadership, having visibility and representation. What we're missing right now is a software, if you will, and that is the policy, the laws, the regulations, the rules, the ideas of what our state should be. What do we care about? What are our values? Do the values of Virginia really reflect the values of us as immigrants and first generation Americans? Do the policies of our state, our schools, our localities, do they reflect the needs of our religious faiths and our minority communities that have unique language assistance or cultural issues? So we need to have that. And that's the part that we've been missing a lot. And historically, we just have not had the membership who've been at the table of policymaking to make that happen. That is what the Virginia Asian American Pacific Islander Caucus is all about. Our legislative caucus was designed to be a group of us as policymakers coming up with, working with our communities to hear your voice, hear your thoughts, make sure that your ideas can be part of our government solution. So we are the policy voice for you in the General Assembly so that our state's laws and policies reflect our views. And if we combine our work on behalf of the policy issues and your work with the hardware, the logistics of campaigning, we should be able to win every single election going forward.
Thank you, Delegate Keam. Lastly, I'm honored to introduce Delegate Kathy Tran, who represents the 42nd district in the Virginia House of Delegates, and who made a history in 2017 along with Kelly Flower as the first Asian American woman to be elected to the Virginia State Legislature, and as the first Vietnamese American elected to statewide office. Delegate Tran was also a founding member of the newly formed API Caucus. Delegate Tran, welcome to today's panel. Your story of how you come to the United States with your family is perhaps one of the most powerful. Can you share with us your journey? Can you also speak to your leadership in lifting up the diverse voice of Virginia's AAPI community and efforts to organize them ahead of the 2021 election?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and apologize for being just a few minutes late. I'm here tonight with baby Warren. It is past his bedtime, but almost 1-year-olds in my household never abide by bedtimes. But it is, I think my story is like so many of your stories, and so many stories of people who have come to America in search of the values of hope, opportunity, and freedom. And, my family at the end of the Vietnam War, my parents just realized that they didn't see a future for themselves in their homeland, and thought that the only way to survive and to have a better future for their kids was to leave. And so, like so many others, our journey was by boat. And we came as refugees when I was almost 2 years old in 1980. And I've never thought about, running for office. I never saw myself in the people who had a seat at the table, and worked in policy and worked in advocacy. But after the 2016 elections, was extremely compelled to stand up and to speak out for the values that my parents had risked their lives for, and the values that I think are foundational to our democracy. And so I decided to run. I was a mom of 4 at that time, and it's been an incredible journey to be a voice for the Asian American Pacific Islander community in Virginia. I have always just appreciated the opportunity to work with Delegate Keam and Senator Hashmi. But I think the fact that we formed this caucus together brings us to, in collaboration much more intentionally. And I think that is just gives me a lot of opportunity to learn from them, but also for us to think more strategically and have power in our numbers to push a common goal and a common agenda. And I think how incredibly important it is to have representation, right? My kids are 12 and under right now, and for them just to see us having these conversations, they think it's normal, but how I know I still get chills when I sit in a room with other Asian American women, with women of color, with immigrant women, with, it's like, to me, it's like, whoa, this is so different and so amazing. And that's what I think part of our work is about, is just to show that we belong here, that this space is ours, just like it belongs to everybody else, and that our voices are equally important and they matter. And this election in Virginia is important to us and to our daily lives, but it's also important as a statement to this country about the direction that we're heading in. And we, as a community, were the margins of victory in so many elections across the country. And frankly, in the 2 special Senate elections in Georgia that gave us a Democratic majority, and also for the presidency. And so for us to continue to stay engaged and to flex our muscle is going to be really important. And it's an important statement in Virginia, but it's also important in terms of the absolute need to pay attention to our communities, that when you are assessing what is happening at the polls and why people are coming out to vote, that you're paying attention to the AAPI community, that you're taking our pulse, that you're, trying to figure it out. And frankly, right now, that isn't happening. And we saw that in the after, in kind of the dissection of the 2020 elections. We saw it a little bit in some of the conversations around what was happening in the New York races that just happened, right? And so we have to keep showing up, and that's so important. And so I'm so excited to be working with my colleagues to help make sure that, and all of you, to make sure that we are reaching out to all AAPI communities and our voters, and having people understand why it's so important to come out and vote. And quite frankly, so many of us in our communities have risked life and limb for this ability. And so we need to make sure that we use this and take advantage of this right and speak up right now.
Thank you so much, Senator Hashmi, Delegate Keam, and Delegate Tran. And before we move on to the next segment, we want to say thank you for joining us today and sharing their inspiring and insight and experiences on organizing the AAPI community in Virginia. And personally, I have been to events, live events, and on Zooms, and I have seen your kids for Delegate Tran, and I think somewhere where somebody's probably going to do a sort of a little book for Zoom to see your kids growing up. But yeah, thank you so much. And next, I'm delighted to introduce SAFA's Candidate Recruitment Committee Chair and the Vice Chair of Democratic Asian Americans of Virginia, Anika Rahman.
Thank you, Saddam. My name is Anika Rahman. I am now honored to be a moderator for your panel on building coalitions for Democratic wins in 2021 with some of the most inspiring organizers around the country. First up, I am honored to introduce DNC AAPI Outreach Director Eric Salcedo, who was formerly the National Field Director for Asian Pacific Islander Vote. Welcome, Eric. Recently, the DNC announced historic 4-year agreement that will guarantee more investment into the Democratic state parties and grassroots infrastructure than ever before. Can you speak a little bit about what this entails in terms of mobilizing AAPI communities across the country, and more specifically, how it can help turn out the AAPI vote in 2021 in Virginia?
Hello, Anika, and hello, Virginia. It is a pleasure to be with you this evening. Last week we saw Vice President Harris announce a historic expansion of the I Will Vote program, where the DNC will be making an investment of $25 million into that. Previously, I Will Vote had been, our website that was used to register voters, but we are going to expand that to include voter education, voter protection, and targeted voter registration, because we know that the only way that the Republicans can prevent us from winning is by suppressing our vote. So we are we're fighting the hardest fight in order to protect this most sacred right that we as American citizens have. Also, we are building out our voter protection team, because we know coming out of 2020, there have been instances, and even now with all the different proposed legislation, what's going on, especially what we had seen the Texas Democratic state legislators have to do in order to prevent our voting rights being curtailed. Also, we have our DNC tech team, which will be using tools to identify suppression efforts and to counter disinformation online. And most recently, in terms of what we're doing to empower AAPIs in battleground states, is we've launched our campaign readiness program, where we are training. It's a dual track program where we're training leaders and organizers on distributed organizing to come in, and this is what we're doing to build the bench, build the pipeline, so that in 2020 we had Ravi as the API state director. We need more Ravis, right? We need to build out more API organizers and leaders across campaigns, so that we can win in 22 and in 2024.
Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing your insights. Incredible work, and we appreciate all you do for our community. Happy to have you. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to welcome Jarvis Houston, the organizing and political director of Sister District Project, and who was formerly the national spokesperson and political director for I Love Black People by Bill Murray, and has served as a campaign manager for numerous past campaigns. Welcome, Jarvis.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I also recently served as the South Carolina State Director for former Mayor, current Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who also always told me I had the hardest job in politics at that time to elect a openly gay white man in the state of South Carolina. And at that time, I did have the hardest job in politics. And I'm happy to have this job with Sister District Project. We're a national grassroots organization. We are a national grassroots organization with 50,000 volunteers and 150 teams across the country. And our goal is to elect state senators. And we're happy to say that 40% of our candidates in 2020 were candidates of color. 66% of our candidates for Virginia in 2021 are candidates of color. And our South Asian candidates that we helped elect were Senator Magma Degra in 2017 in Washington, Rep. Patna Koopa in 2018 in Michigan, and our current senator we helped elect Senator Hashmi in 2019 in Virginia. So one of our biggest hurdles in 2021 currently is the Voting Rights Act. And one of the most important parts of the Voting Rights Act is the language access. Language access is very important. I was the chief of staff for a senator in New York, and we had a large Bengali community. And we fought to make sure that we had languages. And the senator said one great thing. He said, if I have 1,000 people in the election district or a precinct, if one person speaks Hindi or one person speaks Spanish, then that one person will have ballot access. Making sure that you have every notice, every voter registration form, every piece of literature from the Board of Elections should always give language access. And that's the biggest area, the AAPI communities, and the biggest area for communities of color in general, language access. And one of the most important parts of the Voting Rights Act is language access. And Trump is still here because in the last 4 years, he appointed three Supreme Court justices, and we know what happened in 2013 with Shelby versus Holder. We know what happened in Arizona. And we got to say enough is enough. We have to work to elect the right state senators, the right state reps to protect our rights to vote. In Virginia, in only 2 short years, they expanded voting rights. They worked to get all those racist Confederate statues to slowly get them out of the state of Virginia. And now we're working to phone bank and win, because we have to keep this majority. Virginia, everyone knows, is the bellwether of what happens in 2022. We know Thanos, who we know is Donald Trump, is coming back in 2024. And 2022 is very important for our midterm elections to keep our majority in the Senate, to keep our majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, and to make sure Biden is re-elected as our president, and our dear sister Kamala Harris is re-elected as our vice president. It's very important. And Sister District Project has 12 endorsed candidates, and we're happy to say Soft Agents for America has joined us as our national partner for phone banking. And we know postcards is very important. You know, text banking, important, but to win campaigns that have been going on for over 100 years, it's phone banking and door knocking. Those are the 2 things that win campaigns. The reason President Obama won Indiana, which was impossible in 2008, was because each voter he reached 16 times. Again, every voter in Indiana, they targeted 16 different times. And we have to run that same type of program in Virginia. And our volunteers, our 50,000 volunteers, have made over almost 200,000 phone calls so far. And also, we have made 59% of total dials for all of our 12,000 candidates, and we have raised over $200,000 through low-dollar donations for our candidates. So again, we're happy to have Soft Agents for America join us as a partner. And again, it's not over because Biden win. I know we have a good deal of people that said we beat Trump, so it's over. It will not be over till I can walk down the street and see a police officer and not be afraid. It will not be over till a soft agent Muslim that has someone knock on their door. They don't feel afraid for their family. So it's not over. It's just the beginning. And we have to protect our voter rights. We have to protect our language access rights, and we have to protect our civil rights. And again, in 1965, a lot of people don't speak about it, but the Immigration Nationality Act was created in 1965 from the Voting Rights Act, and we have to protect both. We have to protect our immigrants, and we have to protect our rights to vote, because we have worked hard and hard and hard for the last 50 or 60 years to have our right to vote. You have the right to vote. I have the right to vote. And now we have to protect the majority in Virginia. We have to go into the midterms and win, and we have to make sure we beat Thanos, the Trump who's coming back in 2024. 2024. Enough is enough. Republicans, we have to kick them back. We have to organize together, and we have to phone bank, and we have to door knock and win if we build for 2022 and 2024. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jarvis. I love your energy and your passion, and definitely agree we need to emphasize in phone banking. So thanks again for sharing all of your insights. Thank you for your time today. Next, I'd like to welcome Tram Nguyen, an award-winning activist and community leader who helped found New Virginia Majority in 2007 and who currently serves as New Virginia Majority co-executive director. Welcome, Tram. Can you share with us how you have created a powerful movement that has transformed Virginia by organizing communities of color, women, working people, LGBTQ individuals, youth, and progressive people, and how these lessons have learned through mass and organizing can ensure that the voice of marginalized communities in Virginia are mobilized and better represented?
Thank you so much. That's such a great question. It's so wonderful to be with you all this evening. I love following Jarvis and his energy because it's got me pumped up and the blood flowing through my veins. So thank you for that. So just when we were founded in 2007, it was actually on the coattails of the failure of comprehensive immigration reform at the federal level. And if folks will remember, what happened at that time was there were mass mobilizations across the country. Millions of people took to the streets in March, and we had bipartisan support in Congress. And despite that, we didn't win. And our postpartum sort of analysis of all of that was, we didn't win because not enough new Americans, not enough immigrants were actually also exercising our power at the ballot box, right? That it's not enough to do direct action and to protest and to organize, but we could combine the best practices of community organizing with electoral organizing and voter engagement to really maximize the potential power of new Americans across the country and in Virginia. And in Virginia in particular, we saw a huge opportunity because of the changing demographics, frankly. I grew up here in Virginia all my life. Like Delegate Tran, my family came here to the United States as boat people, as refugees from the Vietnam War. And I remember growing up in the suburbs of Richmond in Henrico County. And at the time, in the 1980s, I remember in first grade when I was 6 years old, my classmates debating in front of me whether I was Black or whether I was white, because there weren't people that looked like me, that looked like many of us in our communities. And at the time, if you look at the census figures, then it was 1 in 100 Virginians was foreign born. You fast forward to today, and that's only like 35 years later, and it's 1 in 7 Virginians was foreign born. So all of these sweeping demographics, I think, poised and provided us with an opportunity to just imagine what would happen if we intentionally engaged the diversity and the communities that live and make up this rich fabric of the Commonwealth of Virginia. What would it look like to actually maximize our power and our organizing potential and our voting bloc? And so we set out to do just that, right? Meet people where they are, talk to the Latinx community, talk to the Asian community, the South Asian, the AAPI, like Black folks, white folks, LGBT folks, young people, meeting everybody where they are to understand the unique issues that face our everyday lives. And we set out to sort of just, brick by brick, lay the foundation for the progressive infrastructure to shift the political landscape here in Virginia. Over the last 14 years since 2007, we've registered hundreds of thousands of new voters. We've knocked on 3.6 million doors. This year alone, we have already done 600,000, and we're on track to hit our goal of hopefully 1.5 million for this election cycle. And again, it's having real authentic conversations with people and letting people know that their vote matters, and that when we elect people who look like us or who come from our communities, like Senator Hashmi, like Delegate Tran, like Delegate Keam, who understand our collective lived experiences, we could have really meaningful policy change. And that's what we've seen over the last 2 years. The most diverse state legislature that Virginia has seen in its 401-year history has ushered in sweeping change, right? So many first in the South pieces of legislation and bills that I have lost count of. And it's truly remarkable what it looks like and what could be possible when people really organize and work with our elected officials to bring in the change that we all seek, right? The world, to create the world that we want to live in. And at the same time, people who are fearful of this change are doing everything they can to make it harder for us to exercise our power, right? They are afraid of this reflective democracy. And that's why we're seeing the voter suppression efforts across the country. And why, you know, Jarvis mentioned earlier that Virginia has expanded voting rights. One of the most, like, the proudest bills that I had the pleasure to work on was the Voting Rights Act of Virginia. It is the most comprehensive voting rights act, state voting rights act in the country. And I almost dare say in the country, like even at the federal level now, given the latest Supreme Court decision in the Arizona case that has gutted the Federal Voting Rights Act. We are doing everything we can to make sure that our community's voices can be heard, and we need to protect that, because it's not just our voting rights and our democracy at stake, but it's every issue that we care about. And so, you know, as we think about building this multiracial unity and multiracial effort, it really is about meeting people where they are and making sure that our democracy is truly reflective of our communities. And it's just such a pleasure to work with all of you and to work with Sister District and, you know, all the folks that are on this call just to make this happen. And I look forward to continuing to be on this path towards November with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tran. Whether it's on Zoom or in person, it's always an inspiration to see you. Virginia is better because of you, and we appreciate all that you do. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to lastly welcome Nisha Ramachandran, the co-founder and board chair for Desis for Progress, an experienced advocate for AAPI community, who previously served as a policy director for the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans, NCAPA. Welcome, Nisha. You know, Desis for Progress has done so much to promote South Asian candidates running for office, including endorsing South Asian candidates in Virginia elections in 2021. Can you speak to how you've helped South Asian candidates organize support in South Asian communities that they're running in, and what strategies have you worked, and the importance of building coalitions with other communities of color?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anika. And let me just start by thanking SAFA for hosting this incredibly timely discussion tonight. It's so great to hear from so many community leaders and elected officials, and it's just a great way to spend this evening. So I hope everyone's really enjoying it. Desis for Progress, as you mentioned, our political engagement committee started actively working specifically in Virginia in 2019's statewide elections. We endorsed, as you mentioned, a handful of candidates, including Senator Hashmi, including Delegate Suhas Subramaniam. We worked in local races with Rajna Sizemore Heiser, with Shamli Hath, with a whole bunch of South Asian candidates in 2019. We did work in Virginia, of course, through last election year, and as you mentioned, we're back to Virginia this year for this year's elections, including endorsing Delegate Subramaniam once again. And so, you know, we've been working for the last few years on mobilizing our communities through, similar to the work SAFA is doing, and sometimes in conjunction with you all, postcard parties and phone banks. And, you know, Jarvis was right on what he was saying about the importance of phone banks, and all the rest of those things are great and work, but nothing as good as, you know, talking to someone, getting them on the phone, and hopefully in-person canvassing coming back again soon. As some of you may know, a lot of our programming is in DC. And so getting involved in campaigns for South Asian candidates in Virginia has really helped to grow our political engagement work with our communities in Virginia as well, and kind of bring the work that we're doing farther than just the kind of inside the Beltway area and farther into the state. And our support that we offer candidates as we endorse them is, you know, at a grassroots level, doing these types of activities, coordinating with their campaigns, providing a platform for them to be reaching the community. But I wanted to just mention, you know, I think thinking about how we all work together, and that's something that's come up a lot, right? The South Asian community, the broader API community. One of the things that we talk about is how we fit into that broader space. And so it is really important, and we see it no better example than tonight's event, right? How important it is that we are working in coalition with each other. So in addition to working with folks like SAFA, like working with DAV, with other Virginia entities, we're also talking a lot with other API political organizations and grassroots organizations doing work to not just support South Asian candidates who we may be endorsing, but really move farther than that as well. And so I really just can't underscore the importance of the coalition building part of that enough. We as a small, entirely volunteer run organization do not have the ability to provide, everything a campaign might need, but working in conjunction with groups that can really able to help move some of these candidates forward. And I think specifically related to, I think this is part of your question, talking about coalitions of color, right? I think for us, it's really important to note that in so many cases, when we think about communities of color, right, we're thinking about candidates working together, and we've seen that. We've seen that on tickets throughout Virginia, where you have folks from different communities coming together and bringing those communities together. It is very clear, we all know this, that we succeed more, we succeed faster, we're better when we all work together. As many of our interests are also aligned, right? And consolidating our power is just taking us further than working alone, or frankly, even worse, our communities being pitted against each other, which we see happening time and again from the other side, right? Finding ways to use particularly the API community, South Asians included, as a wedge, and that's what we're trying to stand up against, right? I'd also mention, it's not entirely political engagement, but when we talk about coalitions of color and working together in communities, it's, again, more than just the candidates or more than just politics, right? Coalition amongst communities really means talking to each other and thinking about how we're having conversations within our own communities that are tough. And as an example, and I think everyone, it's no secret to anyone attending, right? Anti-Blackness, for example, runs deep in Desi communities. I think we all know that's true. And some of the work that we've been doing isn't strictly political engagement necessarily, but it is having these conversations with our families, with our family friends, with our communities. And that's something that, Desis for Progress, we've been hosting these conversations in these types of spaces in person on Zoom, and encouraging our folks to be having these conversations. And we'll continue to keep doing that, to keep bringing these up to the forefront. So, as we continue the important work that we have ahead, to keep Virginia blue, to keep electing and keep supporting candidates like the ones you heard from earlier, the elected officials you heard from earlier, and so many more. I think it's amazing to see that every year now, especially with elections every year in Virginia, we see more and more South Asian candidates, more and more API candidates, folks that are running at all these different levels, right? And as we continue the important work of building those bridges between our communities, having the tough conversations, and really turning out to support the amazing South Asian candidates, the amazing API candidates, the elected officials that we have that are doing this work, particularly in Virginia. I can certainly speak for Desis for Progress when I say that we're very much looking forward to continuing our work with SAFA, with DAV, with so many of the other folks here in phone banking and canvassing and moving, doing all we can to keep Virginia blue and continue making strides for our community.
Thank you, Nisha, for sharing the importance and highlighting coalition building. And I think we can all agree, as you said, we're stronger and better when we're united and working together. And SAFA looks forward and continue to working with you. Thank you so much. As we're coming closer to the end, I want to thank Eric, Jarvis, Tram, and Nisha for joining us today and for your truthful and honest, insightful remarks. You make me proud to be from Virginia. Thanks to all of you tonight. Next, I am delighted to introduce SAFA's co-state director for Virginia, Kannan Srinivasan. Good night.
On behalf of all of us at South Asians for America, thank you very much for joining us tonight at this first Roadmap to Victory 2021 event centered around Virginia 2021 elections. We're all truly grateful to all of our amazing panelists for sharing their time with us tonight, and also for their truly inspiring messages. We especially want to extend A special note of thanks to Governor Terry McAuliffe, Delegate Hala Ayala, and Attorney General Mark Herring for joining us tonight, given their hectic campaign schedules. My name is Kannan Srinivasan, and along with Salim, I'm proud to be a co-state director of Virginia, a critical state that Democrats must win in 2021, where we must not only retain, but also expand our Democratic majority, and one that will set the stage, as we all know, for the 2022 midterm national, for the 2022 midterm elections. As you heard from our esteemed panelists, the AAPI electorate in the state of Virginia make up 8%. Will play a very critical role in ensuring Democratic wins in our state. As a state director of Virginia, for Virginia, I urge you to get involved today, join SAFA's mailing list, and find out about organizing opportunities. As you all heard, it's all about organizing, making calls, knocking doors. Making calls makes a huge difference. Find out about our organizing opportunities in our state and leading up to this most important November elections. Thank you very much. I now hand over to Adnan Bokhari.
Thank you, Kannan. Hi, everyone. I'm Adnan Bokhari. I'm a proud Virginian. Just like Anika said, I'm proud of Virginia, my home for the last 26 years. And I'm also a proud member of SAFA's leadership team as co-chair of operations. Can you hear me okay? Great. I want to be able to thank Bianca and Harini and Shivanti and Praveen, who have been helping backstage as well. And really all of you for staying with us for this long. I want to just share and close out with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, who said about 100 years ago, role of citizens in a republic. I've modified a little bit to make it more inclusive. It is not the critic who counts, not the person who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who, at worst, if fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his, her, or their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know defeat nor victory. Democracy and the times today require us to be in the arena. And as Kannan mentioned in his remarks, I urge you to get involved with SAFA and help increase our community's turnout in the November elections. Please check out the Take Action page on SAFA's website. That is your one-stop shop for getting involved with SAFA and finding a very cool voter registration tool, which makes the process of registering to vote simple, thanks to a partnership with Field Team 6. Talking about partnerships, we are also partnering with Vote Riders to translate voter ID pocket guides in various South Asian languages. And lastly, we are partnering with national groups like Sister District Project on their phone banks to support Democratic nominees in Virginia, as well as working with the AAPI liaison in the state to create phone banks to South Asian voters in Virginia. Make sure to join our mailing list to stay informed about these opportunities and more in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's make Virginia #1 in everything that is good. Good night.